I'm Stephanie, and welcome to the Reading Room. This is the place where I review what I read in the last month, and I do my best to keep these reviews spoiler-free, or at least I will warn you if I'm about to spoil something. And as I say in all my reviews, these are solely about the books, not about the authors as people. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the books that I read in May. Okay. First up was What the Wife Knew by Darby Kane, as I've had my eye on Kane as an author for a while, and this is my first read by her. Let's go ahead and see what this one promised. Dr. Richmond Doherty is a renowned pediatric surgeon, an infamous tragedy survivor, and a national hero. He's also very dead, thanks to a fall down the stairs. His neighbors angrily point a finger at the newest Mrs. Doherty, Addison. The sudden marriage to the mysterious young woman only lasted 97 days, and he'd had 2 suspicious accidents during that time. Now, Addison is a very rich widow. As law enforcement starts to circle in on Addison, and people in town become increasingly hostile, sides are chosen with Catherine, Richmond's high school sweetheart, wife number 1, and the mother of his children, leading the fray. Despite rising tensions, Addison is even more driven to forge ahead on the path she charted years ago. Determined at all costs to unravel Richmond's legacy, Addison soon becomes a target, with a shocking note left on her bedroom wall. You will pay. But it will take a lot more than faceless threats to stop her. Her plan to marry Richmond and then ruin him may have been derailed by his unexpected death, but she's not done with him yet. Okay. So this had an intriguing setup because right off the bat you know that Addison hates her husband, despises him, wants him dead, but is still a little caught off guard that he dies but not at her hand. This felt very like Mr. and Mrs. Smith as they try to kill each other and dance around the truth. I really did love Addison at first because she's such a snarky bitch, but she almost does feel like a different character by the end. And the book only spans like a week. It just felt very rushed for like a lot of development that wasn't really conveyed that well on page. And in that same vein, she is very inconsistent. Like the end twist just throws everything at you. And I mean everything. And it's meant to be a shocking twist. But it requires us to go back in time a bit so it doesn't line up with her actions and choices. Like, she wouldn't do certain things later knowing what she knows. Like, she's acting like she found out this information at the same time as the readers, but chronologically, it doesn't work. But I generally liked Addison and empathized with her and her situation, but that's also because everyone else in this book just really sucks. Except for Addison's lawyer. Like, the lawyer is the character that I like the best. Her husband is the absolute worst. His ex-wife is a fucking banshee. Addison's mother is also a demonic creature from hell. Like, I guess I can cut the husband's kids some slack as they are children. They don't know any better, and they were raised by despicable people. The main mystery is figuring out who killed Richmond before Addison could, and who now knows and is trying to target her. We're also trying to understand why the hell these 2 are married in the first place. Like on the murder side, there are some suspects, even though obviously the police are looking very closely at Addison. So let's solve these mysteries. And we're going to do that through a lot of conversations. This book is kind of boring because it's like 90% conversations. We really only have one setting, which is Addison and Richmond's home. It is mostly people coming over to visit Addison and talk about everything that they know. There's really not a lot of action in this. And these conversations, they're telling her things that she already knows that they're just telling us for our benefit. It gets really boring. And I think she leaves the house like 3 times. 3 times. Otherwise, everything else is happening at home. And locked room murder mysteries are one of my favorite things, but you have to keep things moving or do action, and we're just not doing that in this. So Addison stays home, but even that's not safe. People are constantly breaking into her house or inviting themselves in, especially Richmond's children and his ex-wife, and then there's Elias, her lawyer. He's the one who has to like come to her rescue, and it's just lather, rinse, repeat. There are subplots in this, but they also kind of feel like they're competing for the spotlight too much. Like, this book just kind of feels like it has too much happening, while it also feels like nothing is ever happening. And we do switch point of views for a few chapters, but it felt shoehorned in a way to like up the word count and up the page count in this. Like, the few chapters from someone else are there for a specific reason. They serve their purpose, and then it's done. Like, there had to be another way to get that same information, as again, these like few chapters don't really add much to the story. Honestly, it was a bit hard to stay engaged with this, and the ending is just so bonkers and relied on shocking me with twist after twist after twist thrown in that it became too much. If an author has to rely on multiple twists to get me, then I don't think the story is good enough on its own. It feels like they're throwing everything at me and hoping something gives me that like, ooh feeling, instead of just writing one actually compelling twist that does leave me surprised. I don't need the, but wait, there's more in my endings. Especially when it's these type of twists. Like, the final reveal was actually pretty nasty and gave me the ick. This was like eating a bowl of plain oatmeal and then finding hair in the bowl when you're already done. Wasn't great to begin with, and now you're just kind of left gagging. Like, I actually told my book club about this book because they'd asked, like, what were you reading? And I told them about it, and then I spoiled the ending because I'm like, you don't really need to read this anyway. And I'm ending up giving this 2 stars. It's okay. I mean, there's plot, there were characters, there was lots and lots of dialogue. Though I will say I did laugh at some of the ex-wife's dialogue and behaviors, but it's meant to be threatening and scary. Not funny, but it was just so in my face that it ended up kind of being funny. So I will give the book credit there. Again, I wasn't going for it, but at least I did laugh. And I did read this all the way through. So again, 2 stars. It's fine, but this is not a book that I'm ever going to want to reread again. So next up was The Search Party by Hannah Richell. I do apologize if I am mispronouncing that. I have had this thriller on my shelves for quite a while. This is actually another one that I ended up getting 2 copies of from different like book subscription boxes. So I assumed it had to be pretty good if these book boxes were picking this as their, book to send out. But let's go ahead and see what this one promised. The storm isn't the only threat. Having left the London rat race with their son, Max and Annie Kingsley have set up a glamping site business in the wilds of Cornwall. Eager for a dry run ahead of their grand opening, they invite 3 old university friends and their families for a long-needed reunion. But the festivities soon go awry as tensions arise between the children and, subsequently, their parents. Explosive secrets come to light, and a sudden storm moves in, cutting them off from help just as a member of the group mysteriously disappears. So all in, I enjoyed this read. I found this to be very atmospheric, had a lot of tension, and I just kept waiting for that axe to fall on these characters. I think Richell, again, apologies. I do think she is a very strong writer and really brought the setting and the characters to life, as I could easily picture everything that was happening in the story. I felt the storms brewing, both the actual storm that's like coming in towards the coast and the storm that was brewing among the friend group. I also do think that the switching timelines and point of views worked really well here, as the story takes place over a holiday weekend and we get glimpses of what happened through different characters and then in the present as the characters are giving their version of events over to the police. It was very easy to keep the timeline straight and slowly get glimpses into the past to see what happened and what led to them being at the police station. I also really loved that everything came together in the end, and we were given answers to everything. I really love that there were no loose plot threads by the time I closed this book. Now, I will say that this is definitely more focused on the characters and the plot, but it worked well in this as it's a slower build and is mostly about their relationships. Though that is also a detractor at the same time. It felt like some things were being stretched out way too long, And there's a whole point where we know in the prologue that a girl or woman is hurt, but we don't find out who or why until the end. Now, I did like the reveal, but I hated how everyone had to bend over backwards to not say the character's name and give away a piece of the mystery. Like, it was just trying my patience by the end, and I will admit I did start skimming at points just to kind of like speed this process along. It also felt like there was a bit too much of a spotlight on a character that at that point I knew they were a red herring. But there are plenty of people to be suspicious of in this cast of characters, and I didn't feel like the reveal of the antagonist came out of left field, nor did they have a weak motivation, so it worked out in the end for me. At times, there were points where I would get characters confused, as there is a lot of players on the field here. I struggled keeping Max and Jim separate, especially since Jim is always hanging out with Max's wife. Like, where is Max? I mean, the book has a list of the cast of characters in the beginning. To me, that means somebody else struggled to keep them separate while editing or reviewing this book and suggested that to Richell. Like, it's a book, not a play. I shouldn't need a casting call sheet to keep these characters straight. This isn't exactly a gripping page-turner, given that it does have a slower pace, nor one that I felt like I needed to stay up until like 1 a.m. to finish. But while I was reading it, I was definitely immersed and enjoyed the drama that was happening among this friend group, and trying to figure out like who the real Slim Shady was. I did end up giving this 3.5 stars, as I do think it is a good read, has a good mystery, and was well written and well plotted. It's just that this locked room murder mystery book is kind of like a sloth. I enjoyed looking at it, but I wished at times it could move just a little bit faster. If you like books that are big on atmospheres, simmering tensions, slow builds, multiple points of view, and really diving into the characters and the psychology behind a lot of it, you'll probably really enjoy this read. Okay, next up was a book that I've been very excited to read and one that has been very hyped up, and that is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim. Let's see what this promised. Feminist psychological horror about the making of a female serial killer from a Korean-American perspective. Ji-won, and I know I am mispronouncing that and my sincere apologies, Ji-won's life tumbles into disarray in the wake of her appa's extramarital affair and subsequent departure. Her mother, distraught. Her younger sister, hurt and confused. Her college freshman grades, failing. Her dreams, horrifying, yet enticing. In them, Ji-won walks through bloody rooms full of eyes. Succulent, blue eyes. Salivatingly blue eyes. Eyes the same shape and shade as George's, who is Uma's, her mother's, obnoxious new boyfriend. George has already overstayed his welcome in her family's claustrophobic apartment. He brags about his puffed-up consulting job, ogles Asian waitresses while dining out, and acts condescending toward Ji-won and her sister, as if he deserves all of Uma's fawning adoration. No, George doesn't deserve anything from her family. Ji-won will make sure of that. For no matter how many victims accumulate around her campus, or how many people she must deceive and manipulate, Ji-won's hunger and her rage deserve to be sated. So sadly, I do have to say that for me, this was a book that didn't fully live up to the hype. I do think as a debut, it shows a lot of promise, and I am excited to see Kim develop her skills as an author, but this ended up being a very slow read for me. Like, we're kind of just following Ji-won through her day-to-day life, but I didn't feel like it was developing the plot or the character. Like, it felt more like just a slice of life, like her diary. It's just Ji-won watching her mom break down, go to school, talk to her sister, think about blue eyes, and repeat. It kind of became boring. I kept checking the page numbers as I couldn't believe I was like 50 pages in, and it felt like nothing had really happened yet. I eventually realized that it felt like things were just happening. It didn't matter what Ji-won did or didn't do. Things were just happening around her. She might as well be a passenger in a car because she's not driving the plot. Like, there's a point where I'm like, how did she become such best friends with this character, Alexis? No idea. Because there's not really any time devoted to watching their friendship develop. Same with Jeffrey. Like, their relationship just pops out of nowhere, and it's not even like they have shared history or anything. She has a friend group that she does have shared history, but they appear in the story as they're needed and disappear when their scenes are done. It felt like Ji-won doesn't really develop over the story. She's obsessed with eyes, sure, and it's creepy, sure, but I have no idea what else is driving her or what motivates her. Again, it just feels like she is very much a passenger in this story, and this is her diary. To me, it felt like her characterization was severely lacking, which made it really hard for me to like her at times. Like, she's just bumbling along, living her life. No idea what motivates her, what she wants, besides blue eyes, so stay the fuck away from me, Ji-won, or even what she hates. She just is. And the more we see of her past, the more I didn't like her. This book also has the problem of every single male character is bad. Ji-won's dad, bad. Mom's new boyfriend, bad. The guy she sees in the coffee shop, bad. The guys at school, bad. There are bad guys out there, but I feel so bad for her because she is just surrounded by the worst of the worst. Like, it would have been more impactful to have some of them not be so obvious and more insidious about their bad behaviors and hiding it behind the facade. Like, I did appreciate the social commentary, and especially about Asian Americans who really have to work hard to prove themselves as Americans, and the commentary around men who fetishize Asian women. Those aspects were really well done, and it almost feels like Kim would really excel if she focused on those aspects of her book, as this didn't really feel like horror to me, or at least not until like maybe the last 20%. Like, it does get gory and horrific, but it just took so long to get there. And most of the horror scenes are just dreams or daydreams or straight up hallucinations. And it got kind of old because we'd be in a tense scene and, oh, she's waking up. It's not really happening. Just, it wasn't shocking anymore, even if these scenes were unsettling and well written. It was just more annoying as it keeps anything from happening in the actual plot. It doesn't mean anything because it was just a dream. And then when stuff does start happening, it just opens up so many plot holes. And Ji-won is lucky that she's the protagonist and is surrounded by plot armor. Everything is convenient to the plot. And when everything is convenient to the plot, when it finally shows up halfway through, like, I hate to say it, but random is the best word I can use to describe this. Things are randomly happening. Ji-won is randomly obsessed with blue eyes and randomly doing things. Victims are randomly falling into place. It's not even like she's hunting people. Like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a huge plot hole or plot contrivance in the end that just really annoyed me. Honestly, I'm more like disappointed and frustrated because I think there could have been so much more done with this story. Cut some of the dream sequences, give Ji-won a lot more agency, give her something that she wants, and really dive into the themes here. I love a good for her book. I love female rage. But this honestly just kind of fell flat for me. Again, the men suck, but I don't know specifically why Ji-won is doing what she does. And another thing that fell flat was the structure. Like, I could not stand how short the chapters were or how some of them were structured. Like, some get multiple scenes broken up with page breaks, some get one scene, some just felt unnecessary, or, going back to my word for this, just very random. Now, I do recognize that I am an outlier with my review. I mean, this book was nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award for Favorite Horror and Favorite Debut last year, so I could totally be missing something with my reading experience with this. I do think Kim has a good career ahead of her, but for me, it felt like this book was missing something. I totally get what she was going for, but in some regard, it kind of just felt very shallow. Like, we're skating along the surface here when we could have gone a lot deeper. And again, give me some legitimate horror where she's actually going out and doing this stuff instead of just dreaming about it. I'm really sorry, but I have to say I'm only giving this 2 stars. This was a very slow read for me, even though it's pretty short. And again, I get what the point was supposed to be. I think it could have gone deeper and it could have done a lot more. Next up was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing that last name. Now, this sounded like such a good read, and I was so excited to feel so many things, so let's see why I thought that. We all have regrets, choices we could have made differently, paths we didn't take, other lives we might have led. But what if you were given a chance to fix your past? Enter the Midnight Library. Nora's life has been going from bad to worse. Then, at the stroke of midnight on her last day on Earth, she finds herself transported to the Midnight Library, where each book contains an alternate life, a possible world in which she made different choices. She is given what seems like the ultimate opportunity, a chance to undo her regrets and try out each of the other lives she might have lived. But things aren't always what she imagined they'd be, and soon her choices place the library and herself in extreme danger. Before time runs out, she must answer the ultimate question. With infinite choices, what is the best way to live? So the idea of this is amazing. Experiencing different lives, different versions of yourself, just because you made a few different choices, that was so neat. I get what Haig was going for here, but again, I think I found the execution a bit lacking. God, I don't know why May was such a bad month. I'm really not sure why Haig felt that he had to hold my hand through everything. Like, everything that Nora learns is repeated so much. I'm directly told, this is the lesson that Nora just learned. Now hear her talk to the librarian about the lesson she just learned. Did you get it? Do you understand what Nora learned from that life? Let me break it down for you one more time, just in case. My eyes work. I can read. I can comprehend what we're trying to get to here. I wanted a lot more subtlety, and I wanted to be trusted to put it together. It was just very in your face, and it almost felt like a children's program. Like, again, they have to spell out the lesson that she's learning. We're like, yeah, I got it. I can keep up. On top of that, the dialogue in this was so bad. Like, if I were to suddenly pop up in another life, I doubt everyone around me would just be expositing what I need to know as if I was new to this life. Like, one of Nora's lives has someone else being like, why were you weird to so-and-so? And it's someone she should know, but then they go on like, you know so-and-so, we went camping with them. We've known them 2 years. You know they're with their partner, Jane Doe. Like, I get why it has to happen for us as the readers, but it just feels very contrived, and it's just not good dialogue to begin with. Like, it read like a Netflix show where they know you're only half paying attention, but this is a book. It has my attention, but it still treats me like a moron. There were also so many cliches that were just kind of laughable in this. And our main character, Nora, I'm not really sure if I liked her. I sympathized with her and understood why she felt like her life didn't have meaning or why she didn't want to live it anymore. But as a character, And in some lives, she is this famous and amazing person, but I just could not picture it. She's kind of blah. Like, she is Anne from Arrested Development. The ending here is kind of a mixed bag. Like, I like the message that we have so much potential. We can become who we want to become. Life is a series of choices, some bigger than others. Some of our choices impact those around us. Some will not alter the course of history for other people whatsoever. We should appreciate being alive and making the most of the time we have. Beautiful message. But at the same time, it kind of felt very dismissive of like clinical depression. Just choose to be happy. Choose to see the positive. Even when things are shit, life can be good. For some people, yes, but for others, that's not going to help and feels very simplistic and again, just dismissive. Now, I love Allie Broche, and in Hyperbole and a Half, she talks about discussing her depression and used the analogy that she would tell someone that, her fish died. The person would be like, oh, okay, let me help you find them. And she'd say, no, I know where the fish are. The problem is that they're not alive. The person would then say, well, let's keep looking for them. They'll turn up somewhere. And then Allie's like, no, see, that solution is for a different problem than the one that I have. Now, Haig's work is obviously meant to be uplifting, and again, it is. It works for some people, especially if you just have situational depression. But it's also trying to walk the line of Nora wanting to end her life, which is very serious, and being a self-help book that rah-rah-rahs its way to a happy ending. For most people that experience bouts of sadness or, again, situational depression, this has a good message. For those that have clinical depression, I could see this being a harder read, as it makes it seem like happiness is just a choice when sometimes it really isn't. There's even a point in one of Nora's lives where she's looking through the bathroom for like antidepressants and is pleased to not find anything. She finally thinks like, this is a life where she's happy. Like, come on, some people just need medication to combat depression, and that is okay. That is normal. It's a diagnosis. It'd be like telling someone with cancer that they should just try to be happier, and then maybe the cancer cells will just go away on their own. Why would you want to have radiation or chemo treatments? Like, your body can figure this out. Now, I do understand that he is putting a lot of his own experiences and feelings into the book, and I'm guessing, and I'm really hopeful that this was therapeutic for him. The message will resonate with a lot of people. I'm glad that a change in perspective helped him, and appreciate the vulnerability and authenticity that he put into this book. But for those that this may be a hard read, or if you are still struggling, I do want to remind you that there are resources available if you are suffering and you feel like your life isn't worth living. 988 is the crisis lifeline, or if you're in Colorado like me, there is the Colorado Crisis Services, which is available at 844-493-8255. Please do reach out if you need someone to talk to. I'm not going to try and sit here and rah it through, but you do deserve to have that conversation. It is very important that you try. I understand what Haig wanted to share, and I appreciate the ideas behind this and the notion of getting to see how your life could be different. I'm going to be generous and give this 3 out of 5 stars, as I do believe the intentions were very good and very positive here. And I do recognize that this book has had a positive impact on many readers, so I have to give it credit for that. And this book did make me cry in the scenes with Nora and her cat, so it did make me feel things. It's a good idea, but Nora is not my favorite character, and there were times that this just felt very boring. It is very after-school special in how repetitive it is, and again, just forcing the lesson down my throat. Like, I get it. This isn't Sesame Street. I don't need it spelled out on page for me and repeated 5 times to understand that Nora learned that there are bad aspects to the lives that she expected to be magically wonderful, and that again, your life is a series of choices and that you just have to enjoy it while you're here. Good message. There are some things that I don't love about the execution in this one. Next up was The Stranger in Her House by John Mars, and this is my second read by Mars, so let's go ahead and see what this one promised. Paul's just here to help, or so he claims, sent by a charity for vulnerable people to do odd jobs for elderly widow Gwen. But for Gwen's daughter Connie, there's just something about Paul that rings alarm bells from day one. He's a little too kind, a little too involved. Worse still, Gwen seems to have fallen under his spell. The last thing Connie wants is a stranger meddling in the safe routine she's built around Gwen. She loves being the one Gwen turns to for cooking, cleaning, and company. But the more Paul visits, the more Gwen is relying on him. By the time he conveniently finds himself between homes and has no choice to move in, Connie is certain he's trying to push her out completely. It's her word against his, though, and as her attempts to unmask him become even more desperate, she's not the only one left wondering if she's lost her grip on reality. But when events start spiraling rapidly out of her control, should Connie wage all-out war on Paul and risk losing Gwen forever? Or has that been his plan all along? So this book gave me the feeling that I get from the Scott's Tots episode of The Office, but instead of secondhand embarrassment, I feel secondhand frustration, and that is a good thing. Mars delivered this feeling so perfectly. Like, Paul's predatory behaviors are so insidious, and I just felt so frustrated right alongside Connie as she tries to figure out like what he's doing and why no one else sees what's wrong here. And when she reports it, people are just like, oh no, you're just blowing it out of proportion, when it's like, no, but you don't see. This book had such a bingeable quality to it, as I kept reading to like see the cat and mouse games between Connie and Paul, and again, figuring out, is this all just in Connie's head? Like, is she projecting things onto him that aren't really there? It's so tense, and I loved how it continued to build as we peel back the layers of Paul's motivations and escalating behaviors that quickly crossed the line. Now, I will say I did guess one of the twists early, but I do think it played out well within the story. Some of the stuff in this is honestly implausible and requires an idiot plot to work, but it was also so captivating at the same time. It's absolutely wild, and the characterization is on point. I saw another review by a Goodreads reviewer named Cece, and she said it really well in that it's horribly fascinating. It's just so true. The characters in this are intriguing, even if you don't like them. And trust me, there are a lot of shady, despicable, or aggravating characters in this cast. But you also kind of can't look away. You want to see them get their just desserts, and Mars does a great job of keeping this story on the move. I was never bored with the pacing in this. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I was so invested and curious to see how this would play out. This was supremely twisty, and I did like how the twists were actually spaced out. Like, we get our first one about halfway through, and it really works for keeping the pacing moving. I liked that we didn't have to wait until the last 20 pages for it to just be twist, 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 like Chubby Checker. I really loved the layers of deception, manipulation, and exploitation in this psychological thriller. Again, take some of the plot points with a grain of salt, as they stretch plausibility quite a bit, but it's still a really fun ride. Now, I do want to give a content warning that this book does deal with dementia and elder abuse. If those topics could be hard for you, go into this cautiously, or just don't pick this one up. Like, at times, Gwen just made me think of my grandmother who had dementia. It was really heartbreaking watching Gwen lose herself to this disease, as it read very realistically. Watching Gwen so badly just want to be herself and independent, but knowing that she can't was really hard. So if that is something that would be hard for you to read about, this book could be a trigger for you. So next up, I changed course a little bit and picked up a romance read with a ghostly slant, as I had really high hopes for it. I'm not the biggest romance girly, but one of my favorite books of all time is 20s Girl by Sophie Kinsella. That has ghosts, romance, and humor, and that book is perfect, and I will not tolerate any negativity towards that book. So I figured another book about someone who can see ghosts and wants to fall in love would be right up my alley. So I picked up An Enchanting Case of Spirits by Melissa Holtz. Let's go ahead and see what this one promised. When a 40th birthday celebration leads to a ghostly visitor, 3 friends find themselves navigating surprising mysteries and spiritual hijinks in this clever debut from Melissa Holtz. Alyssa Mann isn't adventurous. Not since her husband died and she found herself the single mom of a teenage daughter. But there's no way to avoid celebrating the big 4-0. So when her best friends drag her out for drinks and a tarot reading, she throws caution to the wind and decides to see what the spirits have to say. It's all fun and games until she wakes up the next morning with a wicked hangover and a ghost standing at the end of her bed. Sheer panic sends her running for help from Nick West, the very attractive detective who lives next door. When he finds no one in her house, Alyssa has to accept that she really did see a ghost. And, as the dearly departed keep appearing, Alyssa and her friends do their best to learn how to control her newfound power. Trading insults with ghosts, returning family heirlooms, and getting closer to the skeptical, but helpful, Nick is more fun than Alyssa imagined. But when looking into one ghost's past reveals unexpected and unwelcome facts about Alyssa's late husband's death, she discovers she just may be in over her head. I can't. This was horrendous. I wanted to DNF at 130 pages, but it was also so bad that I couldn't put it down because I kept reading to find something new to hate about this book. Trust me, there is going to be a wine club about this, as I have some thoughts. Actually, I might even break out my husband's homemade limoncello made with Everclear to get through that review. Okay, I'm going to start with our protagonist, Alyssa, who's the most miserable human being I've had the mispleasure to read about. I haven't hated a main character so much since, what's her name, in The Blackwood House by Darcy Coates. Oh my god. Alyssa was insufferable. I kept hoping a twist was going to be that she was dead too, and that's why she's seeing all these ghosts. She is so mean to everybody for absolutely no reason. I know the author was going for like a snarky vibe and that Alyssa is just really sarcastic, but as someone who speaks sarcasm fluently, she is just a straight up bitch. She lashes out at everyone for no reason and takes zero accountability for anything. Now, I don't count it as a spoiler, as it's given away in the synopsis, but she is adamant that she wants to do this tarot reading, except it's not actually a tarot reading, it ends up being like a seance, and she forces her friends to go through with it. She is open. She wants to make contact. And she does. And then now she is livid with the woman who did the tarot reading. She blames her. How dare this woman do this and open this door to the dead? Bitch, you're the one who asked. You wanted the dead to communicate with you. Like, she snaps at everyone, dismisses anyone who doesn't do exactly what she says, even though at times she knows she doesn't know what to do, and people are just trying to help. And she's all, well, that's stupid. That won't work. How do you know unless you try it? She's just so rude. It is a Christmas miracle that her friends still like her and try to make an effort with her. I sure as shit wouldn't. And Alyssa flip-flops more than a fish that has just been reeled in. I could not stand her, and this just made the entire reading experience awful. It's supposed to be funny, but it isn't. It's supposed to be cute and charming, but it isn't. We go from Alyssa eating 19 tubs of Ben & Jerry's each night as she's still deep in her grief about her husband, to then wanting to grate cheese on her hot neighbor's abs. The romance is barely there, and it honestly makes no sense. I fell out of bed when I read the line from Nick about Alyssa, where he says, "Beauty aside, she's witty and easy to be around." Nick, please. You've had 4 conversations with her. I don't know where you have been the past 2 years and 200 pages, but she is not witty. Her password is boobs14. That's not witty, that's just immature. And she is not easy to be around. It'd be easier to sit on a cactus than have a conversation with her. This was torture. I can see what Holtz wanted this to be, but boy oh boy, this did not get there. Seriously, look at all those tabs. Those are times that I marked when Alyssa was being a straight up asshole to everybody. Alyssa is the worst. The mystery isn't that great either, and then they leave a plot thread dangling so that you'll want to pick up the next book, which I actually just think came out this month. I'm sure I will end up reading that book because it will be required reading when I am sent to hell. This was bad. This is so bad. This should have been a DNF, and it is lucky to get 1 star because I did manage to finish it. Not happy with it. Okay, at least we end the month on a good note. So this was a repeat author of Shari Lapena. I'm actually not quite sure how to pronounce that, so my apologies. I'm going to be honest, I have read An Unwanted Guest and was pretty mad about that reading experience. That ending really made me mad. But I like to give authors more than one chance, typically. So I went ahead and picked this up. So before I do get into the review, I do want to give a trigger warning. While I'm not going to talk about it much in this review, this book does deal with a man who basically wants Michael Scott's screen name, which was, little kid lover. But they mean it seriously. They don't mean it in the way that, I want to be a dad and I want to have kids. And there are scenes where that character is thinking about young adults in a gross way, is inappropriate with teens, and threatening them to make sure that they stay quiet. This book also has a scene about a home invasion, so if those could be hard to read about, please go into this cautiously or avoid this one altogether. Okay, let's go ahead and see what this one promised. Nothing ever happens in sleepy little Fair Hill, Vermont. The teenagers get their kicks telling ghost stories in the old graveyard. The parents trust their kids will arrive home safe from school. Everyone knows everyone. Curtains rarely twitch. Front doors are left unlocked. But this morning, all of that will change. Because Diana Brewer isn't lying safely in her bed where she belongs. Instead, she lies in a hayfield, circled by vultures, discovered by a local farmer. How quickly a girl becomes a ghost. How quickly a town of friendly, familiar faces becomes a town of suspects. A place of fear and paranoia. Someone in Fair Hill did this. Everyone wants answers. And one innocent question could be deadly. So all in, I liked this much better than my last read by her. I picked this up one afternoon and went outside just to sit outside and get some vitamin D and read outside for 15 minutes. And an hour later, my husband comes out asking, did you put on sunscreen? Because you've been out here for quite a while. Like, I was hooked, and I sped read through the first 100 pages. Lapena's writing style is great in this, and it felt really well paced. We got just enough clues to keep like the puzzle coming together, but it never dragged, nor did it feel like it spent too much time on like trivial scenes. I loved the red herrings in this. I loved that like a clue would be revealed and it's all, ooh, aha, it must be you. And then that clue would work for multiple people. And so then I was not as pleased with my investigative skills. The red herrings also got sufficiently creepier as the story went on, and I loved trying to figure out what was really going on. Though unfortunately that tripped my thriller reader alarm, and I realized some of the characters are just that. They are red herrings. They are too perfect to actually be the killer, and that was kind of a bummer. There are also, I think, just too many characters in this. We'd switched point of views, and I had to remember who this person was and how they're tied to Diana's death and who they, how'd they know her. Oh, they're at school. Oh, they're a friend. Oh, there's just too many people. I did at least appreciate that all the characters are distinct and different enough in terms of motivations and characterizations to keep them straight, but it is a giant cast. I did also like the inclusion of Diana's point of view, as it added something different, but it also annoyed me then when like the reveal comes, as it doesn't line up with like what she has already told us or what she remembers. And I really wish so much more had been done with the ghost stuff in this. There are tons of mentions of ghost stories and seances and trying to contact the dead, and we know that Diana is there, but it's just there. Like, nothing's really done with it. It kind of felt disjointed at times. And that too was a bummer. There could have been so much more done with this, and it was such a cool element. Now, I did really like the themes in this, especially around like, who do you trust? Who do you believe in certain situations? How do you know if you're a good person? How far would you be willing to go to protect someone you love? How do you get closure and move on? This was such a good exploration of what we'll do in a crisis or when we're faced with tragedy. Do we try to protect our worldview, or do we do the right thing even if it's hard or it feels impossible? And I also did really like that while many of the men in this are gross, it wasn't like every single man popped right out of hell. There was nuance. There are morally gray characters. There are men who made bad decisions, but aren't completely deplorable. One thing I didn't love, though, is that this kind of had a YA feeling to it, as Diana is a teenager, as are her friends, and we get some of their points of view. It's just there's a lot of like teen angst and teens doing risky behaviors that, while it is true to life, it was also annoying to read about, and I just didn't have that expectation that this would have a lot more YA feeling to it than it did. And the incompetence of the detectives was absolutely annoying. Like, they're trying to find Diana's phone, but never think of using, like, Find My iPhone or location sharing with her friends. Like, come on, detectives. Like, the phone can't be on then. Like, and whoever turned it off should have turned it off where they left her body. As someone who watches a lot of Forensic Files, this annoyed me how they didn't even bother, like, talking about what they did with the phone. This was on track to be a solid 4-star read. But the ending and the lots and lots and lots of unresolved plot threads lost it half a star. It was such a tense build and then just ended with a whimper. There's no explanation of what happened to many of the characters after the reveal, and I wanted that closure. Why have this giant cast of characters if we only get resolutions for basically 2 characters and one that I don't really care about? It just felt very incomplete and a bit pointless in some aspects. Again, kind of like the ghost story stuff. Like, if we're gonna include it, like, do something with it. This book just kind of has the problem of, here's the answer, the end, goodbye. But I wanted a little bit more. And the motivation for the killing was not great, in my opinion. It reminded me of why I didn't like An Unexpected Guest. That killer came out of left field and had a weird-ass motivation that wasn't explored in the text, and so I don't feel satisfied with the reveal. I am going to give this 3.5 stars, as I did read it until the end, and I really enjoyed the first, let's say, 80% of the book. I do think the ending just needed a bit of work. Now, I do have The End of Her by Lapena on my to-be-read shelves, and I'm more excited to read that now than I was after reading An Unexpected Guest. but I'm really hoping that that ending is a bit more satisfactory. But this was still a decent read and held my attention throughout. I would definitely recommend this. Okay, so that recaps everything that I read in the month of May. If you have any recommendations for what I should read in June, or I'm also going to say July because my June to be read pile is probably like this big already. I have very high hopes for June. Please leave your recommendations in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you next month in the reading room.